because that's more convenient. I was going to start off my story with this riff about how I must be the only one that has a hard time answering the question, where are you from? But Farah gifted us all with such a well-told story of her own conundrum with that question. And then Nora pointed out how many of us aren't from the Boston area. So, you know, like many here, I got here recently, and I live in Dorchester. And when I got to the Boston area 3 years ago, you know, I didn't know Dorchester from a dormouse. All I knew was that I'm walking into a 3-bedroom apartment with nice hardwood floors that's renting for what I was expecting to pay for a studio in Boston. Okay, so where'd you move here from? Connecticut. Oh, so you're from Connecticut? No. The only reason I lived in Branford, Connecticut for 15 years was to be with my boys, my 2 sons. Okay, let me explain. I was living in Arizona, and I'm not from Arizona. Married, have a house, 2 kids, and going on like heading towards the 7th year of my marriage, which wasn't really going that well for the last 3 years or so. One thing my ex and I, or at the time my wife and I, did have in common was the fact that she wasn't from Arizona either. We both felt like we didn't fit in the desert. And, okay, she's from the same place I'm from, just about. We ended up finding out that we grew up across the Hudson River from one another. So there it is, I'm from someplace. Spring Valley, exit 14 on the New York State Thruway. So why do I have such a hard time with that question? Well, let me explain. Okay, 1968, I'm graduating from Spring Valley Senior High School. Did K through 12 in Spring Valley. And I can't wait to leave. Why? It's the 60s! I want to jump on that sex, drug, and roll, rock and roll rocket sled and just take off. But you know what? I was practical, and I did enroll and go to college. However, I chose one of the most progressive liberal colleges around, Antioch College, which also happened to have a work-study program, which means that students pack up every 3 months and go someplace else in the country to live and, you know, work or internship, whatever, in an area of their interest, if they know what that is. Well, I loved it for about 3 years, and then I actually got tired of bouncing around. And going into that 4th year, I happened to have a co-op job, as they called it, in Portland, Oregon. And by that time, I had decided that my interest was mass media communications, and I was going to work for the Portland listener-supported station. And I soon found that I was falling in love with Portland. I was also falling in love with Joyce, who lived in Portland. And I was definitely falling in love with radio. I mean, especially non-commercial radio. I was a public affairs director, and I had an air spot Saturday, and I could do whatever I wanted except say the 4 bleep words. So I didn't want to go back. So I lived in Portland for 3 years, and for that period of time, I could easily and emphatically say, I am from Portland. Well, by the end of 3 years, Joyce and I realized that we did need to go our separate ways. And by the end of 3 years, the low, no-income lifestyle of working for public radio started to get a little thin. And then there's the weather. You know, you hear that it rains a lot, all the time. Well, it wasn't so much the rain as like unending months of overcast skies. By April, I was climbing the walls to see the sun. And then that dreary weather kind of engenders a sort of real laid-back lifestyle. And that started wearing thin, too. You know, I had an audience. I mean, I had people that were listening to my show and liked it, but I wanted more. I wanted things to move fast, kind of like they did in San Francisco. Yeah, that's where I want to be, and that's where I moved next. It was also a thing of a new career. I actually got registered in a master's degree program in counseling psychology. And I got involved with the creative arts scene there, and I was totally infatuated. In fact, I think I became a California snob. And definitely could say San Francisco is home for a period of time. Well, I don't think I have enough time to go through my disillusionment with the idea that I might be able to help people, you know, in the counseling gig, and let alone my disillusionment with San Francisco. And you already know that I ended up in Arizona. So why do I have such a hard time with that question? I live so many places. But I realize a more interesting question is, what is it about the places that I ended up calling home that made them home? And I came up with A, I'm doing something I love. You know, radio in San Francisco, radio in Portland, performing in San Francisco. B, I'm connected with a community of kindred souls. And C, I have a love in my life. So I hope that happens again. Maybe it'll even be here in the Boston area. Thank you.